Hello guys, Lit here. So this setup is very different from my previous one. This one we have speed, we have damage, and we have coverage. The defense is not as good as RF, but it's not super squeezy either. And this is Scion Wander. And with Wander, usually the single target is pretty bad because Kinetic Blast is not really good as single target. But I tried to put the Kinetic Fusillade with the Ballista as the totem setup, and it's really good on single target. So now we also have a single target by using the Ballista Totem and Fusillade, and just let the totem do the work on the single target. And the only problem with Fusillade right now is just whether it will survive the pass node or not, because Fusillade is really strong. But as far as I know, it's not that popular last league or even in Frisia. So hopefully, finger crossed, the Fusillade survive the patch node, and that way the Wander can get a good single target. And on the showcase, you can see I'm doing the boss rush, which is usually not the strategy you want to do as a Wander, because Wander doesn't really have a good single target. So doing boss rush, I think, is a pretty good stress test on the setup, just to see like how good it is on the area that is not excel with. Because in terms of like mapping, Wander is really good. Like you have a speed, you have the coverage, and you can kill enemy off screen. So in mapping, Wander is always the best, but I want to stress test this on the boss rushing. So if the Fusillade survive, this Wander setup able to do basically all the content. You can do boss rushing, you can do mapping, and it will be a very strong league start for Scion. So now let's go over the setup. And the only unique that I'm using is 30 tenure, and this is because this is really hard to replace. This glove gives something like 20 something% DPS because of the 100% increased spell damage. And this is just really strong in terms of like league start, because this glove is also very common unique, so it's very cheap to buy, and sometimes probably you're going to drop it yourself. Like the last day I'm league start with the Wander, I dropped this myself. So this is a very common glove. As for the rest of the setup, for the one, I'm just using Essence of Wrath just to get the lightning damage, and I'm just looking for a decent amount of flat damage, because early on you don't have a lot of flat damage. So one is a big source of flat damage. So I'm just looking for like cold or fire, and I just craft the critical strike chance. On one, you actually do not want to have the attack speed, because we only have this cluster up here for the restorations. You can check this on the POB. Just make sure your Kinetic Fusillade attack rate is not over 3.27, because if you go above that, like 3.4, 3.5, you will start losing DPS because of how Fusillade works. I will leave a link in the descriptions for the website that I use to calculate the amount of attack speed that I need with the amount of last skill duration that I have. And if you can get crit multi on the suffix, that's good, that's extra DPS, but I try to be conservative here. And for the chest and the helmet, originally I'm using evasion and energy shield base, but I end up not having good enough evasions, because early on you're not really able to craft that much. So I just decided to go for an energy shield base, because that will give you a decent amount of energy shield, and that will help a lot with survivability. And also we are leeching both life and energy shield. The leech coming from this, the Trickster. And Trickster also give a lot of DPS because we use a lot of like mastery. So this node over here end up giving us a lot of DPS because of that. And we can leech life from this node over here, Clever Thief. This is really good node if you attack base. And this is instant going to increase the recovery a little bit more. So for the chest, I'm just using Essence of Woe, try to get energy shield, and then looking for some resistance, and I just craft suppressions. And in this setup, we have 80 suppressions with lucky, and usually this is more than good enough for like day 1, day 2. If you can get like suppression in your gear, let's say that if you're using evasion and energy shield on your helmet, if you can get suppression there, you can get suppression on your boots, you probably can keep your suppression here without have to use lucky. And for the helmet, I'm using Essence of Loading because I need the mana reservations. If you do not have this, you can go for this node over here. We just need 8%. So this one is also not that bad, but I try to be very efficient with the tree. So loading here, just look for a good life or good energy shield or some resistance, and just craft the special suppression. And for the boots, this is just spamming Essence of Steel to guarantee the movement speed and try to get some amount of life, and then I just craft special suppression. Like there's not even resistance here. And for the shield, this one using Essence of Envy. You probably also you can use Essence of Greed to guarantee the life and look for the chaos. And we do need the chaos resistance here, because we are at 50%, and this is what I'm always aiming for, something like Wander. having something like 40 to 50% chaos resistance usually is more than good enough on day one. And for the craft, you can craft flat or you can craft resistant if you need more resistance. And you can also craft suppression here if you need more suppressions. And for the belt, I use Essence of Envy to get the chaos resistance. Unfortunately, on this one, you cannot really use Essence of Greed because Essence of Greed on belt doesn't give life. So it's basically just spamming Essence of Envy until you get some life and craft the elemental damage with attack. Now you can also craft resistance if you need resistance. And for the ring, you either use Suffering, Anguish, or Torment, and this will give you flat damage to attack. Because we are not using Trinity, it doesn't really matter which one that you use. If you want to use Trinity, then you kind of have to balance out your elemental damage. But just to make things a lot simpler, and just use the Sacred Will support and you'll be fine. The damage is more or less the same. As a Suffering, going to give Cold, Anguish going to give Fire, and Torment going to give Lightning. So just either use one of this and try to get a good amount of life, and then craft either flat or resistant depending on what you need. And the same goes for this ring, just use one of that essences looking for a good amount of life, and then either craft resistant or craft flat damage. And the amulet is the same thing, you're going to use either one of these three to guarantee the flat, and then you either look for resistance or life. In my case, I do need the resistance, so I go for resistance. But if you get some resistance somewhere else, you can go for life and either craft flat or craft resistance, depending on what you need. So that's basically the items, and I think it's really easy to craft. And we also still have the bridge tree, and this setup is really good at bridge, so we can also farm bridge, and with bridge tree you probably can get a better item than this. And for the Pantheon, it's really depending on what you're trying to do. We do not really need this one because I'm using a Purity of Element. Typical for League Start, I just don't want to deal with Elemental Element. Later on, we can craft a Void Shock and using Storm Slot on the boots, but for early, day 1, day 2, just use Purity of Elements. They're going to remove a lot of problems that you're going to encounter on maps. And for mapping, I like to use Lunaris because it gives you movement speed, making it easier for you to move around. And the Oracle is also not that bad. It reduces damage over time, which can be a problem for this build. And for the Minor God, it's also depending on what you're trying to do. I like Rislata. It reduces the life regeneration on the enemy that I hit, which is useful if you're doing something like boss rushing. And the Burning Ground Apparat is also pretty good if you might have a Burning Ground. And Rolakes is also really good if you do not have a flash like this yet, which is going to give you immunity to bleed and grab the blood. So the Pantheon is really depending on what you're trying to do. And this setup so far is very versatile, so you can play around with the Pantheon. As for the passive tree, this is a passive tree we're using. On the ascendancy, we are taking Trickster. This gives a lot of DPS. This also gives energy leech, and this also slowing the enemy monster action speed around you. Not too much, but for a build like this, which rely a lot on you avoiding stuff, this is really helpful. And for the other one, I'm going for Deadeye. This increases effect of Mark, the additional projectile and tailwind. The Frenzy, just don't bother with it. Technically speaking, if you're running for 3 seconds, you're going to get like a Frenzy charges, but as you can see, it takes a while to generate the Frenzy charges, and if you're firing around, you're never going to generate a Frenzy charges. But in practice, this mod doesn't really do a lot of things. So we just want the effect of Mark, additional projectile, and tailwind. And for the tree, because we are Scion, we can start from the middle. And this node gives us resistance, which helps a lot with capping the resistance early on, so we are not really losing value here. And then we can get the reduced effect durations for the Fusillade Totem Ballista. And I also choose to start from Deadeye, so this is very efficient in terms of point. And for this 3 node over here, there's an option to go for this one. So this 3 node over here, this 3 node give more DPS, but the reason why I go for this one, because this node give movement speed. And for this kind of build, movement speed is a defensive layer because most of the time you are trying to avoiding getting hit. So the faster you move around, it's also easier for you to avoid stuff. So I do value the movement speed more in the build like this. And for the top side, it's just a typical Wander stuff. This one give additional projectile, power charges cluster over here. And on the bottom one, there is this totem node over here. And this is because I'm boss rushing. So having this totem, this allow me to summon 1 more totem. And this one allow me to also summon 1 more totem, this one for anointment. Now, if you do not want to use the totem, you can just remove this part and allocate it on this. This one going to improve your clearing. And then you can go for like, I don't know, some damage not here and all that stuff. That's fine. But since I'm testing this on boss rushing, the totem is really, really helpful. And that's why you see this over here. This is not a totem build. I just use a totem for the single target, and so far it feels good. The totem definitely have a really, really good single target DPS, and that especially makes the setup really, really strong. I think if the Fusillade doesn't get nerfed, this is my top contender to league start with Scion next league. I think next league I will go for Scion, and I think this is the league start that I will go for if the Fusillade not getting nerfed. That's the big if. So I think that's it from me. I will leave you with a showcase on the invitation fight and all that stuff. And if you guys have any questions, as usual, leave in the comment below. I will try my best to answer it. And thank you everyone for watching. I really, really appreciate it. And I will see you on the next one.